Is he committed to commitment? How to tell if a man is serious about you. We're going to dive into this today. So, what is the purpose of dating? I think this is a really good question because many people approach it from the perspective of what can they get versus the real purpose of dating. And why I'm sharing this with you, the purpose of dating is a vetting process, particularly the vetting process before you have physical intimacy with someone. I believe that is technically the purpose of dating, is to make a decision whether or not you're going to be physically intimate with someone. Now, the minute you're physically intimate with someone, ideally you begin a relationship with this person. Ideally, if you're going to have regular physical intimacy with this person, that you're going to agree to some level of monogamy and some level of exclusivity. It's interesting, some level. It really is. There is either monogamy or there isn't monogamy, right? Or there is exclusivity and there isn't exclusivity. But I believe the purpose of a relationship is a vetting process to decide if you want to go the distance with this person. It's a vetting process. And I believe this is radically different for those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s versus those that are in their 20s and 30s. And I'll talk about this in a little more detail. I think one of the challenges we have in the dating marketplace to determine if someone is serious or if someone, let me reframe that, if someone has a short-term mating strategy versus a long-term mating strategy, is the learning curve for this vetting process, the learning curve. Now, what I mean is, it used to be we kind of had a natural learning curve to get to know someone, particularly prior to the internet, prior to online dating, prior to, electricity. The learning curve was you met someone in your proximity, you got to know them, and then you made a decision whether or not you were going to explore a relationship or get married. And the learning curve was rather natural. Now we are in unique times where we have this almost accelerated learning curve, which can create artificial intimacy. It can create artificial connection. It can create artificial attachment. And oftentimes we use chemistry as the indicator for like of another person. I'm not going to use the word love, but I'm going to say like or compatibility versus true energetic connection, which takes time to develop with another person. It's interesting. I've been binge watching a show called Nobody Wants This on Netflix. It's about two 44-year-old, a man and a woman who meet at a party, which feels so rare because given today, there was an article that came out the other day that showed that in 2020, over 65% of couples met through an online connection. The old forms of meeting through friends like this couple did, or church or work or the bars or the gyms, that sort of thing, are down below 35%. In fact, I mean, if you add them all up, they only have a few percentage, where online dating now exceeds this. And the reason why this is so challenging, because we have this need for an accelerated learning curve about another human being. I'm going to pivot for a second. I was just thinking about several of my contemporaries in the male dating coaching sphere, particularly Matt Boggs, Evan Marquez, and Matthew Hussey. I think Matthew Hussey is probably, from a business perspective, the number one dating coach out there. And what's interesting is, and by the way, I have a great deal of respect for all three men. I actually know all three of them. I think they are fantastic coaches. I highly recommend checking out their work. Okay. But what's unique about them, a couple of them, first off, I believe Matthew Hussey just got married, and Matt Boggs and Evan Marquez are married, and they met their spouses at around age 30 to 35. And two of them, I'm not sure where Matt Boggs met his wife, but Matthew Hussey and Evan Marquez met their spouse in a social setting unlike the online dating world we just talked about. So, to some degree, these guys are the exception, not the rule. I think what's interesting is I'm one of the few coaches in the dating sphere that's over 50 years old who has been through alimony, child support, visitation rights, dealing with erectile dysfunction, dealing with parents in assisted living facilities. When I say dealing, navigating a woman going through a menopausal period in her life from a dating perspective, not a married perspective. Okay. And I share this with you all because for those of us in midlife, it's a radically different experience, particularly when it comes to this topic of commitment, when it comes to this topic of seriousness. Why? Because those gentlemen were on the hunt for most likely a wife in their life. They were on the hunt for the mother of their children. They were on the hunt for a committed relationship because they wanted to start a family. You see, this is where it's tricky because roughly, I'm going to say, a significant percentage of the population over 45 are either divorced or have lost a spouse. Okay. I'm going to say over 75% of people in our age demographic, and I'm talking about those of us that are over 45 years old. It's a radically different experience when it comes to commitment, because here is where it's challenging for many of you women. Okay. A man goes through divorce. Most of the time, it's a contentious divorce. Okay. Now, while he might want companionship and sex with another human, companionship, connection, and sex with another human being, does that mean he's ready for commitment? Does that mean that he's capable of commitment? Does that mean he even has a vision of what his life would look like in commitment? Did you hear what I said? Is he capable of commitment? Does he even have a vision of what that looks like? You see, committed to commitment is an intentional approach to a relationship. And sadly, with this age demographic, men and women alike, I mean, I hear women all the time, I don't want to be a nurse, I don't want to be a purse. I know so many women in the dating marketplace over 45 years old that don't want to get remarried. They don't actually have a game plan. They want companionship, connection, and sex. But you see, commitment is vague. Because many people, and this is the key point you have to take away here, and I'll share how to tell if a man is serious in a moment, but the key takeaway are those people who are gun shy. I say gun shy. And sadly, if someone is gun shy to commitment, that means you know what's going to happen when they're in the dating marketplace? They're winging it. They're winging it. They're just winging it. Like I really have no plan. I want companionship. I want connection. I want sex, but I don't know if I want commitment. Here's the challenge with those men who don't know that they want commitment, that they are not committed to commitment. And by the way, I bought the URL yesterday, committed to commitment. I'm going to do a whole coaching program around committed to commitment. If you need some support with me, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Intentional dating is a necessity, especially when we're dealing with this accelerated learning curve with another human being. We don't have the natural learning curve to get to know someone. What was nice about this show, Nobody Wants This, is they had a natural learning curve to get to know each other. And sadly, you're going to find out in the last episode that they have a gigantic potential conflict between the two of them. It'll be interesting to see how they resolve it. By the way, is this sinking in with you? Is this resonating with you? By the way, this was a coffee mug from a client. So, committed to commitment. All right, here is the critical thing. I need you to write this down. If you need to, go back and rewind this. Okay, people who desire a relationship have the capability of being in a relationship, and they have a vision for a relationship exceeds their fears and pains. Exceeds their fears and pains. Now, here's the tricky part. Remember I talked about gun shy? Where does gun shy come from? It comes from a fear or a pain in the past. Maybe that past is a childhood wound of abandonment, of a rejection. Maybe they have an insecure attachment style. Maybe they're avoidant. Maybe they're dismissive avoidant. Maybe they're fearful avoidant. Maybe they're anxious like me. By the way, on a side note, ladies, I'm going to say it's better to date an anxious guy, because at least a needy guy might not be at least attractive, but he needs you. An avoidant person doesn't need you. Their whole thing is they have a challenge needing another person. So if you're going to choose someone, okay, this is selfishly saying, choose an anxious person like me. By the way, I believe I'm getting close to secure. And if you're not familiar with the attachment styles, I highly recommend reading 3 books. And all the books I recommend are listed below. Read the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. Read the book Learning Love by Thais Gibson, who I had on my channel. And read the book Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tech, and I also had him on my channel. Why is this so critically important? That desire, capacity, or capability or vision for a relationship exceeds the fear of pain. This is where it gets really tricky. When the fear of pain when the fear of pain exceeds that desire, vision, and capacity, that person is going to most likely be what I call a user or a spender. Okay, if you're not familiar with my chart, by the way, this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. I roughly say 20% of the population are users. They seek short-term gain. They're love bombers. They're players. They're gold diggers. They're entitled, selfish people. They only care about themselves. The spenders, they seek companionship, connection, and sex. No direction, uncertainty, fearful. Usually have a dysfunctional life. They spend time with you as a placeholder. But the grower builders, they're committed to commitment. They seek long-term commitment. They're emotionally grown up. They have good relationship skills. They have their act together. Committed to commitment. It's an intentional way to approach the process. Now, what are the key factors to committed to commitment? Folks, if you're not familiar with my relationship, please forgive the glare. Relationship iceberg chart. You can see chemistry is above the waterline. We just talked about chemistry. Below the waterline is shared values, blendable lifestyles, and emotional maturity. Folks, committed to commitment means you're going to spend time assessing compatibility very, 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 very early on. And the best way, I think what I'm about to share in a moment is a critical question to ask someone about a serious relationship. So you're texting, hey, how's your day going? Did you have a good day? I hope you had a good day. Okay, you got through the BS initial contact on Bumble or Hinge. The next question is, are you looking for a serious relationship? Are you looking for a serious relationship? Are you looking for a serious relationship? Now, some people will say, oh my God, that's too much. I'm like, are you looking for a serious relationship? Took me 3 seconds. If 3 seconds of a question is too much for someone, I'm wondering how much they can handle when you need hours discussing a more complicated thing, okay? Now, after you get to that, are you looking for a serious relationship? What does a serious relationship look like for you? What does a serious relationship mean to you? What does commitment look like to you? What does commitment mean to you? These are critically important questions to ask before you go on a first date if you are committed to commitment. Hey, if you're looking for, listen, many of you just want to be entertained. I get it. You just believe that, here's the fascinating thing I witnessed with I'm going to, please forgive me, I'm going to say unconscious human beings. That's a judgment on my part. I'm going to own it, okay? But most everybody is, let me reframe that. Egoic human beings. They're more focused on being entertained by someone. What can I get versus operating from a place of what can I give? But this hyper focus on being entertained. Did he take me to a nice restaurant? Did he pay for the bill? Did he pay for my valet? Was he entertaining me so I could feel attraction? There are so many YouTube videos out there based on attraction. That's all centered around romance. That's what entertainment is romance. If you follow my channel, you know I believe romance should be reserved for couples in a relationship, not as an entry point into a relationship. Remember I said what's the purpose of dating? Vetting before sex. What's the purpose of relationship? Vetting before living together or getting married. And this is where the intentional dating, committed to commitment is an intentional approach. That means asking those deeper questions. I shared publicly how I asked a woman some deep questions early on, and she deleted the thread. It was too much for her. Or maybe, well, actually, in all fairness, that's not fair to say. Maybe she thought a misalignment. Maybe that's okay. I have to retract what I said. She saw a misalignment between us. Great. When two people can realize really quickly they're misaligned with other, then it's kind of like when Edison was creating the light bulb. Someone asked him, what does it feel like to have 2,000 failures, before he created the light bulb? And he said, I didn't have 2,000 failures. I learned 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. This is what you have to do with all your past experiences. All of them were learning experiences. They were all part of the learning curve to prepare you to be committed to commitment, committed to commitment, committed to commitment.com/Jonathan Asley. So how can you tell if a man is serious? Okay, these are a couple simple ways to tell if a man is serious. Number one, he makes you a priority right from when he meets you. See, oftentimes we experience somebody in the learning curve. There's the natural learning curve and the accelerated learning curve. In the accelerated learning curve, we experience people where we like them, but we like them, but we like them, but when somebody is a but, or I call it a maybe, we don't make that person a priority unless it fits as a priority. I mean, in other words, unless it fits into our scheduling. Okay. This is where men and women can be radically hyper-focused, because when somebody is a but or a maybe, you don't make them a priority. You make them a priority the minute you have energetic connection with someone, you feel an affinity for someone, you feel alignment. Ooh, I like that. You feel an affinity, alignment, compatibility with someone, you make them a priority. Especially when you're committed to commitment. When you're committed to commitment, there's a misalignment, you move on. You move on. You move on, okay? Number two, he actively tries to help you in your life. Maybe you're going through a crisis in your life. Maybe you're moving. Something is happening. He actively tries to help you in your life. You need some advice. Maybe you're concerned about, a real estate investment, and he happens to be a real estate broker. You ask for his advice, and he genuinely gives you advice. Although real estate brokers, agents will give you advice all day long, so that may not be the best litmus test. Number three, he begins to integrate you into his life. It fascinates me how many people I speak to are then in relationships 6 months or longer, and they've never met any of their friends, their family. It's just a bubble relationship. But Jonathan, I'm in a long distance relationship and we can't do that. Folks, if you want to be committed to commitment, then you better figure out how to take your long distance dynamic and create it short distance. Because in this learning curve, when you have distance, you're not getting to see someone in their day-to-day environments, because you guys are oftentimes suckling on the nipple of a bubble relationship where you get together once every 3 weeks, you have great sex, you maybe go out to dinner, and then each one of you goes back to your respective homes. When a man is serious about you, he wants to integrate you into his life. And be careful of the men who don't invite you to their home. These are men oftentimes married or have a secret. Bump, bump, bump. Men who have married or have a secret. Okay. And last but not least, number four, When there's conflict between the two of you, he doesn't run away. When there's conflict between the two of you, he doesn't run away. When there's conflict between the two of you, he doesn't run away. Every relationship is going to have conflict. In fact, if you're not familiar with the book, 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman, I highly recommend you learning this, especially if you are committed to commitment. And by the way, chapter 2, agree to disagree, addressing conflict. If you do not know how to address conflict between the two of you, most likely he's going to run away. And that's certainly a sign that he's not serious about you. See, folks, it is time to approach the relationship. Are you committed to commitment, or do you just want to be entertained? If you want to be entertained, then you will accept a casual relationship. And let me tell you something about casual relationships. They have no standards. You'll accept anything in a casual relationship. Bump, bump, bump. Casual relationships have no standards. You will accept anything when you're in a casual relationship. Folks, I'm here to encourage shit or get off the pot. Now, listen, folks, if you want a casual relationship, that's totally fine. It's totally fine. If you want a hookup, that's totally fine. If you want a situationship, that's totally fine. If you want a friends with benefits, that is totally fine. You are certainly entitled to do whatever you want. My channel is for those who seek a life partner. You are committed to commitment. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And also make sure you hit the notification bell on your phone as well. Also, if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery, where you can have direct access to me on a regular basis through a Facebook group and a once-a-month webinar listed below. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and get all the books I recommend listed below.